So for now, that was me talking about when an outer planet affects your highest Shadbala planet. Now I'm going to be going into... I showed my own chart for that last example. Now we're going to see an example of someone that we all know so that we can be more objective about our conversation. The Prince of Significance, number 2 in our hierarchy of significance, is when an outer planet influences our sun, our moon, our ascendant, or our ascendant lord directly. Sun, moon, and ascendant are the big 3. Aspects to these are bound to somehow affect your emotional personality, it's the moon, your professional or inspired, the image you project yourself to be, it's the sun, or your actual physical body and the natural life path, it's the ascendant and the ascendant lord. Right? So that's the next one on our list. And as a case study for describing what kind of significance this can bring, we're going to talk about old Marty Scorsese. Look at those eyebrows. Those are some eyebrows happening there. This is the Vedic chart, and I'm just going to give you a glimpse of what we're going to talk about, but essentially I'm going to show you the Western chart when we talk about it. The ascendant sign Leo is occupied by the outer planet Pluto. So this has huge significance. Pluto is a very slow-moving planet. Everybody with Pluto, there's plenty of people born with Pluto in Leo, but they're not all that significant. They don't all do great things. For Martin Scorsese, he's a Leo rising. So the fact that he has Pluto in Leo brings great significance, particularly to him, because his soul is a Leo rising. That's an obvious one. Even this, for Western astrologers, this would be obvious, okay? Now, these next 2 bits are talking about something which Westerners never consider. And this is the Lord of Uranus, which in this case is Mercury, because Uranus is in Gemini. We're also going to talk about the Lord of Neptune. This is also less obvious for most Westerners, but Neptune is in Libra, and so that means that Venus channels and carries through its 3rd house. Venus carries 3rd house energy, and connected to that 3rd house energy is good old transformational, dissolving, super psychic, psychedelic Neptune. And Venus is directly conjunct the sun here, along with Mercury. I mean, it's within a 10-degree orb, but the fact that Mercury has that Uranus energy, and it's the same house as all these significant planets in the chart, the fact that Uranus, through this inference, is highly affecting the ascendant Leo. So I'm going to show you this same thing that we just described, but through the Western chart. We see it's a Leo rising, Leo ascendant. Pluto is in the ascendant. That one's obvious. Anyone in the West would know that this Pluto being in Leo is very close to the ascendant, although you might not consider that it's not actually on the ascendant, so maybe it won't have that much of an effect. But in Vedic astrology, we consider that the energy of Leo is transmitting the energy of Pluto. No matter where Pluto is in Leo, it's going to be transmitting this energy through the sun, because the sun rules Leo. So this sun down here in Scorpio has some deep, deep Plutonian energy. Now you as a Westerner might be inclined to think, maybe that's all there is. Here, let me just zoom this in a little bit. You as a Westerner might see this, the fact that Pluto is in Leo, and you might just think that's all the really important things, you know. I mean, he has Neptune in the 2nd house, kind of like the 3rd house, because the 3rd cusp falls in Libra. And he has Uranus in the 10th house, which is significant. And you can see some significance there. It's also conjunct Saturn. You know, you might think about all these things, and they have their own significances. I'm trying to transmit to you a whole different way of viewing the chart here now, okay? Because the sun is conjunct Venus. You might not think that's significant, but for Martin Scorsese, Neptune is in Libra, which means Venus is channeling Neptune into the sun, which is the ascendant lord, which means that his ascendant, his life path, his way of being is channeling the energy of Neptune in the third house. And the same thing with Uranus being in Gemini. Mercury is therefore, since Mercury rules Gemini, it's channeling the energy of Uranus. Now let's talk a little bit about what this might manifest like. Pluto in the ascendant. This gave Marty a Pluto in the first / Pluto in the 12th vibe. And this can perhaps be seen in many characters of his, including the lead in Taxi. He's also got lots of other crazy violent scenes in his movies, mob, gangster, behind the scenes vibes. Marty is a nice guy, but as everyone sees him as being a nice guy, and he is, he's got, Venus is conjunct his ascendant lord. He looks, and he's a well-to-do fella. Probably subliminally pushy, and sometimes that's evidently a good thing, as we can see, because Martin Scorsese is a deeply, deeply respected player in so many things. Sorry to keep coming in and out of that. I just gotta check once in a while that you guys can see what I'm doing. Now, that's Pluto in the ascendant. That's meaningful enough as it is. What else does Martin Scorsese have? Well, B, as we can see here, Neptune is in Libra, and Venus, which is channeling Neptune, since Venus rules Libra, Venus is channeling Neptune, and it's conjunct the ascendant lord, the sun, right? It's so easy to overlook something like this, but we can imagine how this Neptunian Venus, with its artistic capacities as the 3rd and the 10th lord, right? We can see the 10th house cusp falls in Taurus, which means that Taurus also is ruled by Venus. This is how I want you Western astrologers to start thinking. Venus is channeling the energy of the 10th house and the 3rd house, as well as any planets that are in those houses, right? So, this Venus being directly, so closely conjunct the sun, this would have compelled Marty to not be satisfied with a mundane career, right? The 10th house factor is combined with his ascendant. So he might not be inclined to just have any old career. And it also compelled him, this is also true because Uranus and Saturn are in the 10th house too, but I digress. More particular to Neptune in the 3rd house, we could see that this Neptune, again, you Westerners might say that this is the 2nd house because it's behind the 3rd house cusp. I say that Libra is always the 3rd house from Leo. So there's a 2nd house and 3rd house blending, but consider especially that the 3rd house cusp falls in Libra, which means Libra and Venus, again, carry the 3rd house energy. So this would incline Marty to obtain images of the depths of human consciousness through his art, right? 3rd house relates to art, the stimulation of the mind, constant crafting of skills, almost Gemini-ish sort of vibes. Geminis can be very artistic. To have Libra as a 3rd house vibe is part of what makes Leo ascendant artistic, right? Now, as if that wasn't enough, with this Neptune, Martin Scorsese has this way of expressing through everything that he does, all of his creations, have this expression of sublime human values and intrigues, like just transcendental ideas of what it is to be human, and his expressions as a director of his characters go through these things that are very deep and that we can all relate with, even though it's painful. Sometimes it's emotionally, psychically painful. The character in Taxi is such a great example. Robert De Niro's character is so messed up, and it has these Scorpio vibes, mind you, and it talks about it in the movie. But it's interesting enough that he has those Scorpio vibes, but I would say the fact that Martin Scorsese mentions that the main character is a Scorpio, just like Martin Scorsese is, this shows through his art that he's revealing deeper images in the archetype of Scorpio in his art, right? These are all things to consider. Now, I wonder if I can make this happen here so we can see all of this going on. The last thing I would say is that Uranus in Martin Scorsese's chart is in Gemini. Now, there's a 10th house factor here too. I would blend that in. We can't deny that Martin Scorsese has a Uranus in the 10th house vibe. 10th house, career. Look at the way it's jump-started and projected him. But I would contend that, again, in the Vedic sense, Gemini is always the 11th sign from Leo. So there's a blend of 11th and 10th house vibes here. If you're a Vedic guy like me, you're going to even lean on the 11th house. And that's why I've put this in my presentation. Uranus is in Gemini, and so Mercury occupies the same house as the Ascendant Lord, the Sun. And it's even somewhat conjunct. So Mercury affecting the Sun this closely gives Martin Scorsese's body a nervous energy, an ecstatic Uranus energy. And Uranus is all about even antagonism. Uranus is all about having insights from the future that your present reality are not ready to deal with. And Martin Scorsese's life, his words, and his art all reflect that kind of Uranian explosiveness, intellect and intuition, shall we say. Pluto's more about that physical, forceful explosiveness and power. Uranus is just purely about intelligence, right? So Uranus channels the 11th house energy of Gemini, or 10th house if you feel like it, through its carrier, the Lord of Gemini, which is Mercury, right? Mercury is channeling this Uranus energy. So, words and social concourse, which are a Mercury thing, these must have affected Marty's personality and his life path, his basic existence. Not only, of course, we're looking at the significance of when the outer planets affect the Sun as well as the Ascendant and the Ascendant Lord, right? Martin Scorsese has three of these factors out of 4. So, as the carrier, Mercury is the carrier of his 11th house energy. So Marty's Mercury probably knew instinctively what kind of Hollywood social circles he should associate with in order to draw out the best of the potentials written in his chart. I don't know how many of you know Martin Scorsese, but he's a well-known, well-respected, highly revered director and movie producer. And part of the reason that he got to be where he is because he knew how to connect with, really high social circles in Hollywood. And there's lots of people around his age who have all these same kind of intense planetary energies converging in the same way that he does. But it takes a connection to an intellectual group. Of course, 11th house relates with Aquarius, relates with being connected to a social circle that with shared values. Martin Scorsese would have had a Uranian insight into the kind of groups that he should connect with in order to do what his Ascendant and his Venus wanted, and his Mars wanted to do. There's lots more we could talk about in Martin Scorsese's chart, but this is mainly just to talk about our third layer of significance with the outer planets. It's any outer planet influence to the Sun, Moon, Ascendant Cusp, or Ascendant Ruler. The luminaries, the Sun and the Moon, as well as the Ascendant and its Lord, are all invariably interconnected with everything in the chart. The inspirational impulse, the Sun, the emotional energy field, the Moon, and the physical natural path, the Ascendant and the Ascendant Lord. These almost always receive deep fluctuations and spiritual vibrations from the influences of the outer planets. It affects the basic personality, and it enriches everything in the person's life with outer planet energy. There's a reason why this is like the second, Well, I mean, it's the second. It's not as high as the next one's coming, but this is a huge one, as we can see in the character of Martin Scorsese. Now, again, it's up to the strength of the associated figure, the sun, the moon, or the ascendant lord, and even more so, the strength and dignity of Saturn and Rahu's lord, to define whether a person can put themselves in a good relationship with these transformational energies, or whether they will be worse for the wear because of it. It could be debated regarding Scorsese, because his sun is actually not in the best health here. His sun is very similar to mine. It's in the fourth house. It's right on the fourth house cusp, which is never a good thing for the sun. The sun does better in the 10th house. It's aided by Venus and Mercury, which are benefics, and Mars is in its own sign here. So there's strength to Scorpio, which gives strength to the sun. So it's not too worse for wear, and we can see that, you know, Martin Scorsese might have had lots of trials and tribulations and struggles in his life, but the things in his chart allowed him to get through it. Having one of these aspects is tough, but good karmic reimbursement. It's a necessary cleaning house. It means that this life, for whatever moment, this person has been saving spiritual energy and is ready to dump it through the sun, the ascendant lord. Can bring high energy potentials, as we see in Martin Scorsese. I'd say Scorsese's success is mostly due to his Jupiter more than anything, for various reasons. It's his Atmakarika. It's in close to the ascendant, which gives it Digbala. It's in its exaltation point, Cancer. It's retrograde. But I digress. We could talk a lot about Martin Scorsese's chart, but this is just a case study talking about the influence of the sun, moon, and ascendant lord receiving outer planet energy.